Welcome to my pre-ride for Bredene. Thank you for joining. Right now we are on the finish straight. If you look ahead, that is the finish arch. It's a pretty short one, and as you can tell, it's also pretty narrow. And after we finish, after we go under the arch, we go towards the end, the lap will turn left, but if you look to the right, that's going to be the start grid. So you can tell as we make this left-hand turn, immediately that's the start grid, and the paved section is pretty short before you go immediately onto this muddy little puddled section. Through some grass over this little transition across a walking path, and then up this little off-camber punch. And this is usually a bit of a bottleneck in the first lap. And then you gotta creep down this through the ruts over the transition and hop over, like, I don't know, this weird muddy ditch and into this grass slog. This slog was a little bit reminiscent of Dendermonde not too many days ago. Another transition over a walking path, and here we go, we're like really in the slog. This part of the course, the pits, as we round this turn here, right up there is the entrance to pit 1, and the pits definitely contribute to the wetness in the ground here, but there was standing water here before pre-ride and before the pits were run. So right now, you know, there's a few different lines through there, and really none of them are better than any of the other ones. And now as we pass the exit of pit 1, we're going to make this left-hand turn and slowly see a glob creep down the screen. It's like something from a horror film. It's the glob! I think I wipe it soon, but until then, we're just missing some of that like lovely Belgian mud of doom. Little right-hand turn, more slogging, and it actually got worse throughout the race as the pressure washers were run and more tires went through the course getting churned up, and so a lot of this became a run. And up here, I think at some point, yeah, we're making another transition over a walking path and then up this little punch here. You can't tell it's that much of a climb, and it really was pretty innocuous, but it got pretty slick during the race, and if you were already running the mud, it may as well just keep running up that little hill. Now we're riding a ridgeline here, and you can't see because our glob of doom is covering up what is the only ridden-in mud line, but there are also there's opportunity to ride on either side of the mud line in the grass. Thankfully, I was smart enough to look down and clear off the mud glob. We're still riding on this ridgeline, but we're entering what I think is sort of a defining feature of this course is some more Belgian up-down-up-downs. We just got a little preview with a little bit of a descent and a rise, but you'll see what I'm talking about coming up here. Now we're going to plunge down, mind the ruts, and be a little ginger over the transitions there, possibility for pinch flats, and a sharp up, and somebody's standing here so you can tell that we're about to get into something that's worth re-looking at. And you can see this little climb here was longer than that first one and a bit steeper, not to mention, it's sort of like a little half pipe here. You got to take that downhill, pick your rut, and commit to going through the puddle before you go up the hill. And I don't think I clear it on pre-ride, but as the races went, the wind had picked up, the sun came out a little bit, and the climb got a little bit tackier. And though, I'm not sure how many women actually rode it, I was able to ride it in the race, only cleanly once. A couple other times I had to dab at the top or get some help from a friendly neighborhood post. But usually, you just need to pick whether you want to commit to trying to ride and risk losing time because you're going to awkwardly have to dismount, or pick if you're going to try to ride up and hop off and run, or run from the bottom. Now, just another plunge and another little rise, and this like off-camber swooping right-hand turn that you were actually able to hold a lot of speed through. And with said speed that one would hold if this was not their first lap of the ride, they would easily make it up that hill. They tried to carve in a little bit of a ledge there, but on the left it was pretty flat, and so you didn't really have to contend with it. So again, with speed, that little climb was also easy, and again with speed, this little climb is also easy. Didn't realize how few of these I made in pre-ride, but again, this is my first lap, and after a heavy week of racing, an hour in the car, and a little spin on the trainer, I don't like to load the legs on the first ride by giving 100% effort on every little hill, so I do tend to commit to running a lot more, or just not giving 100% effort on all the hills. That's more of a second lap thing. But I like to give you guys the awkwardness of the first ride, because that's totally more any given person's skill level, right? Because I'm just so superior. JK, just kidding. So finish that ridge line, and we're going to hop down another transition across another walking path and a slight little rise before we get up onto the ridge line for just a short while longer. And again, there's one sort of burned in line, but I like to test the grass and the dirt line, and sometimes the grass is bumpier but a little less sticky. So there's a little downhill ginger transition over the walking path and into another muddy slog. And if you have any sort of perception of what grass looks like, you'll realize that this is the same grass as by pit 1, because we're now going by pit 2. Slog means pit in this course. And you see to our left, you can see standing water through that fence. Yeah, we're about to make a U-turn and hit that too. So strangely enough, I do think that this line immediately by the pit was a little bit drier, and it held to be a little bit drier throughout the race, but we make this turn, and this is pretty sloggy. I think you're going to have the good fortune of watching me slog through it here in this video. But in the race, I was lucky enough to be around a couple other racers and was able to see oh, look at me, I'm hulking through this. But then somebody just gingerly, traipses through on foot and passes me, and oh, well, maybe this is gonna be faster to run. So this is another uphill right here. Not too difficult to ride right now, but it did get more slippery throughout the race, and it's one of those things, if you were already running after the pit lane, you may as well run up that hill too. Another downhill, another transition over a walking path, and again, I'm running, sorry I don't know in bar, but I'm running 18-19 PSI, 18 in the front, 19 in the back, and that's pretty low pressure, and if you hit those square edges with those concrete pads right, you have the potential to flat. So if you look right here, I just took a really awkward entrance into that sand. That was a little grassy off-camber leading into it, and in the race I ended up riding not in the dirt line but higher up in the grass so that I could open up that turn and hit the line properly in the sand. And again, I knew the sand was there, so I was a little bit more prepared for it. But I think generally in the race, most people were riding the sand up to the turn, hopping off for the turn, and then running the turn. And this is a short little grass section here, and it's just the perfect amount of time to hop back on the bike, maybe get your pedals if you want to sprint for a pass, but otherwise I was taking the opportunity to stamp on the pedals and clear the sand out of my cleats, because if you have mud and sand, it can make for a bad situation when you need to clip in and out in a hurry. And now we come to really the only flat turn of the entire race, at least that you can take at speed that's not a muddy slog. So the grass here, much less heavy than over by the pits, so it was a nice section to really race people or maybe get your legs under you. Little sweeping turn on this weird gravelly, not quite a pea gravel walking surface. A little bit of a mud slog here. There are 2 or 3 little muddy puddles. A slight little rise, little downhill, minding the ruts, an awesome swooping, kind of cambered turn here before we get on some fast grass and another ruddy transition up onto the pavement. And I think this section is a little bit different than in years past, but to the right there, it's kind of chunky. So in the race, I saw some lines that looked a little bit drier through the ruts, and I would take them, but it would send me to the right and into those weird holes, and I'd lose all my speed for those little up downs. So now here's a downhill, but a sharp little ditch that I had to slow down and pump through. I'm sure that the men hop it, but I was afraid if I hopped it, I'd smack my rear wheel, and I leave braking things to Carrie, and Carrie's not here, so I need to be sure to not break anything, or we'll know that it was me. So here's the only true recovery on the course, a nice little downhill, be nice over that transition, and then I'm going to dismount for these barriers. It's a pretty fast approach, and they're pretty far apart, and they're kind of short, so I don't know if they're so far apart so that it's easier to hop, I'm not sure. another ditch that you need to pump through or hop, but I'm going pretty slow there, so I wouldn't have the opportunity to try to hop it even if I were fancy to hop ditches. Little off-camber descent here, and I'm sure that there's like a real svelte line to make it through this little chicane, it's the downhill off-camber, little chicane, exit through a ditch, but I couldn't find like a really nice line. My line was just surviving and remembering to be in an easier gear to pedal out. And up a little rise here, and then down across a little bridge. And again, the grass here not as heavy as like a Dendermonde slog fest, even though right now I'm going through a little mud puddle. You have enough speed going into it, and it's short enough and not sloggy enough, so you're able to pedal through it easily. Super nice chop on the inside, because that's how I pre-ride, yo. Nice little downhill swooping corner that I'm sure if you're really great at cornering is really fun to carry speed on the downhill through the turn and nearly coast up. But you know, me, ex-triathlete, can't corner worth a darn, so I'm gonna like churn up that thing. This is a downhill, another transition. Now this is the best. Downhill, transition over the pavement, go into a nice swooping turn through some mud. So if you try to go in too fast, if I were to try to go in too fast, I would wrap myself around one of those poles. Now these short little ditches are full of mud and water, so you kind of had to choose your rut, and some of them just got deeper and deeper, and like the deeper ruts that are wetter tend to like grab your wheel a little bit more. You just sort of have to expect it. And then we cross back through one of those short little ditches at a bit of a camber, but it's no problem at all unless you're setting up for a sprint, because we immediately make this right-hand turn and we're back on the finish straight, and the finish arch is right there. And so, you know, luckily I didn't have to take it to a sprint because I just sat up when I realized I was with people. But yeah, it did come to a sprint in the women's race for third place, and I guess if you're good at short sprints, then you're happy that it's a short finish straight. But anyways, that was a quick and busy lap, but that's what it is, and that's what you need to deal with when you're riding it. And that was slow. Imagine how much I had to think and how fast I had to think at my blistering fast race pace. I don't even know what our lap times were. But anyways, I hope you enjoyed it, and stay tuned for more. Okay, bye.